So I saw this picture and it really resonated with me. Get back to life after disaster. What does that mean? Because rest assured, things will go back to normalcy. It's gonna happen. Now, we may be forever changed, like we were after World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Panama, after 9/11. Things changed, we changed, life changed, but there was normalcy that came afterwards. Same with every natural disaster, virus that struck humanity. It's changed mankind forever. But we continue to live and we go back to the normalcy of our lives. And so the real question is, who are you going to be when you emerge? When you emerge back into the normal world being both figuratively, hypothetically, and for some of you, realistically, when you emerge from wherever it is that you're at currently, when you can go back to the restaurants, the bars, public gatherings, what are you going to learn and what are you going to take from this experience? How are you going to make your life better? Or you're not going to change anything? Because you know what they say, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I fear too many of us are going to go back to the world of normalcy, go back to our lives and not learn any lessons, not change anything, not learn, not grow, not do anything of substance. And that's the point of this video. I want to give you 5 things that I think every prepper should do, should look at, should get involved in when life goes back to normal. I think the first thing we should be doing as preppers, community, prepared-minded people is raising small-scale livestock. Small-scale livestock being anything from rabbits, chickens, ducks, quail, aquaponics systems with fish. I think these are very important to look at. And there are a couple of reasons why I think this is the case. The main reason being is simply the fact that you're not going to convince any major part of the population to move to the country, so to speak. People are going to live in big cities, and that's just a reality that we have to understand. And I know this is something that goes contrary to what a lot of people in this community say. The idea of, hey, everybody needs to move out to the country. As much as that sentiment, I agree with it. The reality is that's not the case, and the reality is the biggest thing we have to worry about is people. People are the catalyst for why we are prepared. We want to take care of people, and so this meeting people where they're at, so to speak, while it may sound that you are giving up on that idea of preparedness and common sense, I look at it more in a perspective of meeting people where they're at and creating sustainability regardless of where you're at. And we have so many templates where this is happening and it is successful. So I think that raising small animals is a great way. It's a great hedge to protect people from really themselves, because we can already see now there are lots of empty spaces at big box stores and grocery stores. Rice is gone, beans is gone, sugar, flour, meats, animal products of all sorts. They're just not on the shelves right now. And this is still a situation where we have running water, electricity, infrastructure, but the food system is definitely being tested right now. And as we can see, it's not winning. And so I think it's really important to really advocate for these small, scale livestock, because they are sustainable. They are very efficient. They can feed large masses of people, and it is what people are consuming. And so I think it's really important that we really look at small scale livestock and understand what it really is, because it's the catalyst for efficiency and sustainability. Too many times when we talk about preparedness and sustainability, we overlook it completely. We talk about, hey, you need to stockpile, we need to hoard, and I'm using that word hoard, and I know a lot of people don't like that. But all hoarding means, it has a bad connotation, a negative connotation, but it's the practice of collecting and accumulating something, whether it's money, food, resources. It's accumulating resources. And yes, it has a negative connotation, but that's what it is. A lot of preppers, especially in this community, they advocate stockpiling. They advocate hoarding. They advocate having large masses of stuff. And while I don't disagree that that's not a bad idea, and especially in a situation where you can't get this stuff, it puts and ingrains a bad mindset. It really, I believe, puts in a defeatist mindset, because now you're starting the clock backwards. So if you stockpile and all you do is stockpile, all you do is hoard, you're starting from the premise of, I have X amount of days of survival because I have this stuff. And so when you start your timer, you're starting it backwards. You're starting it from 1 month, 3 months, 1 year, 10 years, what have you, and you're going backwards. With small scale livestock, when it comes to food, you're starting the clock and you're going forward. I have these many animals, and starting now, I'm going to get more food. I'm going to progress. This is going to sustain me. I can create more. And so I think that's super important when we're looking at this from a preparedness mindset, to give something to which people are going to be able to take care of themselves, and you're starting the timer to go forward, not backward. Number two, I think that we should advocate within HOAs, CC&Rs, local law, municipal law, and state law, and really advocate that they change the rules on the books that would restrict local permaculture, gardening, small-scale livestock, composting, 4-H, water catchment systems, things that are really good for the environment and are sustainable practices. And I would be amiss if I didn't tell you that I don't understand why these restrictions are put in place in the first place. I think it's evidently clear that the reason why that a lot of these, especially HOAs and CC&Rs, are in place because of conflict in the past between neighbors, between local neighborhoods and communities. And understanding that, I realized that a lot of these regulations are private contracts that have been put in place for, quote, the betterment of the local community there, whether that is property, housing prices, or how something looks, or how it looks and how appealing it is. I understand that. But in the broad scheme of things, this only goes to prevent, efficiency and sustainability. And then also looking at it from the aspect of local government and state government, again, it goes down to something has happened horribly in the past to which regulators, have decided to put laws and restrictions in place. And so I think it's really important that this is where our education and our training experience becomes, very useful in explaining this to local legislators and explaining this to our community, and why it's so important that we have these sustainable practices and that we actually advocate for these sustainable practices. And the time is now, and the reason why it's so important now is because right now people's eyes are actually open. This is the time that is most important to start this education, because I can tell you what's going to happen in the future if we don't advocate for this and we don't really educate the population. It's going to be used against us, because right now, as you can see what's going on with the Chinese market, they're finally putting bans and restrictions on exotic animals and this and that, which their husbandry practices are horrible. But as you can already know and understand, anything can be conflated. So if we don't go out there now and we don't show why it's so important that we have sustainable practices and we practice good husbandry and we take care of our environment, that template's going to be used against what it is that we're trying to do. What they're doing over there in other countries is not sustainable. It's not permaculture. It's not backed by common sense. And so it's really important to really educate people and not conflate the two. And I can tell you right now, what I'm already seeing in the conversations I'm having, people are open to gardening, right? The victory gardening mindset. People are open to permaculture. I mean, if you go to your local feed store and you talk to these people, chicks, they can't hold them down quick enough. I mean, there are companies and there are small local farms that are just completely, they're run out, because people understand that, having a chicken in your backyard that's producing eggs can be done respectfully. It can be done reasonably. It can be done in a way that makes common sense. It can be done in a way that would better society. Same thing with gardening. We understand that we can garden and we can make it look appealing, or we can feed our families and we can be really efficient. And so there are laws on the books right now that would prevent people from gardening. that would prevent seed banks, that would prevent rain catchment systems, that would prevent small local livestock. And the reason is because there is this fear, and this fear is based upon education. The fear that if somebody has a rain catchment system that's connected to their gutter, that it's somehow going to take water from everybody else. And so being able to explain why that's not the case, being able to educate people on that is important. People fear that if you have chickens, they're just going to be super noisy, or that, they can somehow pass, diseases and stuff that would be, as a whole, detrimental to public safety. We know that that's not the case. So all this has to do is go back to educating people and really having them understand, because people right now, they get it, they understand it innately, but it's educating them and having them understand. So I think it's really important that these conversations be had, and I think it's really important that we do our best to contact our local legislators, contact our HOAs and CC&Rs, and see if through small changes in inputs we can make bigger change. And so while I'm not telling you to go to your next local town hall meeting and demand that, I just bought all these chickens and I'm going to, have them no matter what, maybe it's a good idea that you can start, hey, can we have backyard chickens? Understanding that there's going to be some sacrifice, in that system, meaning, hey, this is the education that I have. This is what I think is good. This is what I'm going to do. And yeah, maybe you may have to sacrifice between having 20 chickens and maybe 5. But the templates are out there. There's lots of communities out there, and I'll put some links in the description box below, and you can see how other people are already doing this, because the templates are already out there all throughout America. So the templates exist, but I think that it's important, as the dust settles, that we actually put our best foot forward and start implementing these changes. Number 3, learn a new skill or trade. I can tell you, for me, what I really plan to invest my time in when the dust settles is learning how to be a better builder. I know the basics, but I really want to invest in that skill set. I want to be able to build a barn from the ground up. I really want to learn framing. I want to learn how all the tools work. I want to know building design, something that I'm really, really wanting to learn, and it's something that I plan to invest a lot of time in doing. For everybody else, it may be a little different. I know a lot of people right now are talking about how they don't know how to garden, or how they want to learn how to shoot a gun safety. Other people may want to learn auto mechanics skills. Some people have shown a lot of interest in wanting to learn how to harvest an animal from start to finish. And I think that's good, but I think it's important to just not say you want to learn it, but actually pursue those skill sets, because learning those skill sets are great for sustainability, they're great for preparedness, and they're great for your overall health, well-being, and really your soul, being able to be independent and be able to do things for yourself. That's a peace of mind that you really can't buy. Number 4, teach someone a new skill or trade. This is huge. This is super important. I can tell you, growing up, I learned everything about gardening, permaculture design, good animal husbandry. These are just things that I grew up doing. What I didn't grow up learning is how to build, advanced auto mechanics skills. These are just not things that were taught to me as a child. They're things I had to learn, I had to seek out as an adult. And now has never been an easier time to learn these skill sets. There's so much information online, there's so much information on YouTube, there's so many DIY projects you can look at, and that's great. I've learned so much from you guys, and I continue to want to learn. So if you have a skill set, please be willing to teach somebody, whether it's your child, a friend, a family member. These are all very super important, and especially as we transition and we keep transitioning in this world, they're going to become more and more important, because these are things that are not taught in everyday school. These are not things that are not taught innately. They're things that we have to seek out. They're things that we have to learn on our own. I can't tell you how many people right now are wanting to learn how to garden, for an example. There's so many people that are understanding and realizing the importance of it. Another thing is, there are a lot of people out there that are really thirsty for knowledge when it comes to auto mechanic skills. There are a lot of people that want to learn gun safety, how to handle a gun, how to shoot a firearm. These are things that for some of us seem very mundane, and like, I thought everybody learned this stuff. But no, people want to learn how to fish, how to clean and harvest their own fish, how to clean and harvest their own animals. These are things that people are wanting to know. And don't think that just because you don't have these skill sets that you somehow don't have something to contribute, especially in the IT world. there are people that want to learn, computers. They want to learn how computers work, not necessarily from, a standpoint of wanting to build their own website, but they want to know just the basics of technology, because technology is important for, the world to, the everyday world to come. People are wanting to learn how to use radios. There's some people that don't know how a radio works. So these are all things that people are wanting to know and learn. And there's a lot of different industries that use radios. I can't tell you how many people I've come in contact with that's how I learned how to use radios. This is from a guy who wasn't even a prepper, but he uses it in his day-to-day life. And he's like, oh, that's simple. Let me show you. So don't think that you don't have something to contribute. Everybody has something they can contribute, and everybody has something they can learn. So I highly encourage you guys, if you have these skill sets, please be willing to share them and just try to teach one person. Just try to teach one person whenever the dust settles, something that you're very well versed in. It makes a huge difference, because a society that is independent and of independent thinkers that are educated can do anything. Number 5, think globally, act locally initiatives. What does that mean? Very simply put, it's like it says, thinking about what you want to see globally change and enacting it locally through local initiatives. This can be something as simple as making your own compost, buying and producing things that are local. So buying food that's grown local, produce that's grown local, producing food for your local community, whether that's small scale, like through friends and family, or larger scale where you go to the farmer's market. Getting involved in 4-H. That's super important, because getting involved in 4-H allows you to teach the next generation of people how to be sustainable, good animal husbandry, problem-solving skills, people skills. These things are all super important. It could even be something as grand as, running for local office, or being on your small town or even your local community HOA or CC&R board. Because remember, we're talking about thinking globally, active locally. Globally, you can't change the laws that are put into place in regards to the measures we talked about earlier in gardening. But let's say you get involved and you get on your local HOA board and they have some really petty restrictions on gardening. Well, now you're in a position where you can't affect it globally, you can't affect it federally, you can't affect it on a state board, you can't affect it on a county board. You may not be able to affect it big term within your city, but within your own community, you can say, yeah, we are absolutely fine with gardening. We are absolutely fine with backyard chickens. We are absolutely fine with X, Y, and Z. That's what thinking globally, acting locally really means. And unfortunately, in our preparedness community, not to call it out, because I feel like I've been calling it out this entire video, but too many times we say we can't get involved. We can't do any of the aforementioned things because I have skeletons in my closet. And by skeletons in my closet, I mean I have 2,000 pounds of beans, 5,000 pounds of rice, 1,000 pounds of flour, 500 pounds of sugar, and I have a small arsenal of weapons, firearms, ammunition to equip a small militia. That's what, unfortunately, people think preparedness is. You can do all the aforementioned without even mentioning the skeletons in your closet, because it's irrelevant. But so far, too many times, that I don't know how this happened, but through the media and through materialistic consumerism, we have placed those things as what preparedness is. We have placed the stuff I got as being, this is my identity as a prepper, and nobody can know about it because, oh my gosh, they're going to take it from me. And I think it's just absolutely stupid, absolutely ridiculous, and quite frankly, I think it's disgusting, because it just shows you what the media and what consumerism can really do, what petty materialistic consumerism can do. And I know that's a video for another time, but you can do all these aforementioned things without even mentioning the skeletons in your closet, because that is not what prepping is. It is completely irrelevant to the conversation that we're having, but nobody can seem to understand that. So overall, what does this mean for us? What is the aforementioned template I set up going to allow us to do? Well, it's going to allow us to do this. Foster reliable and long-term relationships. This is good not just for times of crisis, but everyday life. What's really great about this template also is it can be done in a group or it can be done singularly. I know there's a lot of people that would you say don't play well with others, or don't like big settings, don't like big groups? And I get that. And that's what's really great about this template is it allows you to do this either as a community or as a singular person. I mean, it doesn't take a whole community to, for example, write a letter to your HOA. You don't have to have a big group in order to teach somebody something or to learn something or to go out and buy local. So that's what's also great with this template. Next, I really believe it establishes sustainable, efficient, and reliable preparedness. Again, this is not a how much can I buy this paycheck preparedness setting. Okay, that's not what, like I said, that's not what preparedness is about. This is about creating real change, real sustainable practices, real reliable preparedness that you and your community can count on in times of crisis. The next is food sovereignty. Food sovereignty is going to ensure that the most local, fresh, and nutritious foods are available to the greatest amount of people. And this is super important because we are being led to believe now that the best way to feed the world is to have a few conglomerate corporations that mass produce large quantities of food to feed the world. And we can already see that there's a global food shortage. We can already see that you can go to the grocery store or box store now and you can't get the food you need. And you can chop this up to, oh, well, people are panic buying, people are hoarding food, people are doing X, Y, and Z. And sure, we can say that, but what's the reason for it? Because there is scarcity, there is uncertainty in where the food's going to be. And when you set up a local system, those fears subside because they know where their food's coming from, because they are food producers. They're working with other food producers. The food is local. They know what's going on with that food, and they know the journey that food has been through. And that's why it's so important when we're talking about food sovereignty and feeding people, that they really not only understand where their food's coming from, but they know that they know the systems that are in place, and they can be involved in that. That's where you take the fear out. You take the fear out of things with knowledge. People fear the unknown, but when you make the food production known and you make it tangible and you get the community involved, that's where you find your solutions. And it should be no surprise that when you have this kind of community involvement, that you see that it fosters ingenuity, competition, high rates of progress, high rates of yield, the highest quality food. If you don't believe me, go down to your local farmer's market or farmer's co-op or community gardens, or go down to your fairgrounds during some kind of competition, whether it's who has the best tomatoes, who has the biggest pumpkin patch, who has the best chili, and you're going to see the highest quality that you've ever seen. I mean, compare the produce that you're going to find at your farmer's market, county co-op, to what you're going to get in the box store. Compare the taste of the county's best chili to the chili that you find at your local grocery store. There's no comparison. And so when you have this kind of involvement, it should be no surprise that you're going to get the highest quality yield and highest quality food. And that's important because we should be wanting to put the best quality into our bodies. I mean, that's what this is all about. It's all about doing what's best for the environment, doing what's best for yourself, doing what's best for your family, and doing what makes the most sense. Because at the end of the day, we need to provide ourselves with real-time answers for an ever-changing world. Yeah, we may not know everything. We may not know how to cure everything. We may not know why everything happens the way it happens. But we should have real-time answers for real-time problems. There should never be a time in your mind where you have to think, where's my next meal coming from? And right now, food sovereignty is not a thing. A lot of people do not know where their next meal is coming from. They don't know what they're going to consume for their next meal. And that's really sad because it's 2020. We have the technology. We have the ability. We have the knowledge. We have the science. Everything is available. We just have to implement it. It's time for us to take control of our lives back into our own hands. And we do it by all the aforementioned. So I really implore you guys to think, what are you going to do if you had the ability and everything went back with a press of a button, everything went back to normal? What are you going to do? Because it's unrealistic to think that we can go back in the past and change anything. So given our circumstances, given the parameters in play right now, what are you going to do from here on out? If you had a magic button and that button says everything goes back to normal right now, how are you going to live your life from the moment you press that button? And that is what I'm imploring you guys to think about. And that's what I'm imploring you guys to set yourself up for. And that's what I'm imploring you guys to do when the time comes. Well, I hope you guys liked the video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. If you like the video, give me a like. And let's have a dialogue. Let's progress forward. Because normalcy is going to happen, guys. And it is up to us to make those decisions. Not only for ourselves, but for future generations to come. Well, as always, guys, as always, long live the Republic.